Hello, today I'm exploring Chapter 20, East Asia, Section 1, Culture.
Hello. Today I'm going to be explaining East Asia. Um, I hope you pay attention to the lesson. You will have it there for further study. Hope it helps you when you are studying for the quiz. That, by the way, you're going to have a quiz next week. So not next week, the following week, I think. Yes, yes, because next week, we're going to be checking the practice that you're going to be working on today, and the following week, you're going to have a quiz. But with this video, you will have access to the information and you can rewind it, you can pause it, anything that you need. Okay, so I hope that can be useful for you.
Okay, the first lesson, and Section 1 is 1.1, Religious Traditions. Buddhism began in India, but it had more influence later on in East Asia. There were missionaries that traveled through the Silk Roads during the Han Dynasty, and they brought Buddhism to China. So in that area, in that part of the continent, there was a blending of different beliefs, and so we have, before Buddhism, people in East Asia practiced Confucianism and Taoism. What is Taoism? Well, Taoism is an ethical system in which they believe that there should be harmony between people and nature. So East Asians combine elements of all these three traditions. Buddhism, for example, they help people end their physical and mental suffering by giving up worldly possessions, and they practice meditation. In Mongolia, on the other hand, they mixed Buddhism with Animism, and Animism, they believed that everything has a soul, nature, objects, everything had a soul. So they worshipped the spirits of their ancestors, and they believed that their ancestors had a connection with something related to nature, that they were part of that nature. So, for example, an ancestor can have, the spirit of the tiger, for example. Here in the book, for example, here they say they believe that the spirits exist in natural forces, including disasters, for example, in rocks, in trees, in everything. Okay. Then, so people who worship animism and Shinto was from Japan, and is very similar. Okay, they believed in the natural forces also, and in the spirits of nature. They believed, or they worship, many different gods, so they practice what is called polytheism. Later on, Muslim traders in northwestern Asia, they helped spread Islam in the 700s. Okay, and Islam, they worshipped only one God, so it was a monotheistic religion. Today, it is the main religion in this part of China. Then came missionaries. Okay, the missionaries, Christian missionaries specifically, they came to East Asia in the 1600s. Today, 30% of South Koreans are Christians. When communist leaders came to China and North Korea, they banned or prohibited the practice of any religion. It was until the 1970s that in China they started to have more religious tolerance. But in North Korea, it's still the same. It's a communist country and a very close and strict communist country, very traditional communist country. Here, okay, we can see here in this chart over here, the religions in East Asia. So in yellow, we have the Buddhist, and we can see here in China, the percentage of Buddhists. In Japan, in Mongolia is where there are more Buddhists. In South Korea, in North Korea, as you can see, very little, and in Taiwan. Okay, then in pink, we have the Christians. In China, this 5%. In Japan, it's just 1.6%, almost nothing. In Mongolia, we have also very little percentage. In South Korea, there are more Christians. And in North Korea, almost nothing. And in Taiwan. Then, in green, we have the Muslims. In China, we have a 1%, almost a 2%. In Japan, nothing. In Mongolia, we have a 3%. South Korea, nothing. North Korea, nothing. And Taiwan, nothing. No Muslims. Then we have in brown the Shinto. Shinto was mainly in Japan. As you can see, it's most of the population believe in Shinto religion. And then in this other green color, darker green, we have non-religious people. As you can see in China, there is a high percentage of people that don't believe in any religion. They don't follow any religion. In Mongolia, in South Korea, but in North Korea has the highest percentage. So China and North Korea have the highest percentage because those are communist countries. And it's the other percentage, including Confucianism, Taoism, okay, those religions. If you see in China, there's a percentage. In Japan, very, very little. In Japan, Mongolia, and South Korea. In North Korea, it's a little bit higher, but in Taiwan, it's the highest percentage is 60%. They believe in Confucianism and Taoism and others. Okay. Now, the next section, 1.2, talk about China's inventions. China has many inventions in different products and technologies that continue to be used today around the world. During the Tang Dynasty and the Song Dynasty, in those two periods were of great technological advancements. They invented the porcelain and gunpowder. In the 700s, they developed porcelain. Porcelain was a strong ceramic pottery. It became a very valuable good, and it is still today. Okay, porcelain is very expensive. In the 800s, they invented the gunpowder, and they used gunpowder first for fireworks. They used to throw fireworks very often because they believed that they frighten away evil spirits. Then later on, this gunpowder was used in weapons. Then they also invented printing and paper money. In 100 AD, they invented paper, but it was until the 700s that they began printing books using wooden blocks upon which text had been carved. So they had these wooden blocks, they carved the whole phrases, all the sentences of the whole book, page by page. They carved it in wooden blocks, and then they printed them on the paper. In the 1040s, they invented a movable type that was individual characters that were carved on clay or metal blocks and were placed in a frame to form a page of a text. So they had the frame and they started placing the different characters. And those blocks could be moved, so it was easier. You didn't have to print the whole book. Okay, they had that, and they printed, so they could print more pages in an easier and faster way. They used books to spread Confucius and Buddha teachings. In the 800s, they first printed paper money. During the Song Dynasty, this paper money replaced metal coins. At the beginning, they didn't believe in this paper money because they thought that it had no value. But later on, little by little, these paper money started to be accepted and used for trading because it was easier to carry paper money than carrying those heavy coins. Then also they invented the magnetic compass. In the 200s BC, they used the compass to position buildings and furniture in ways to bring luck to the owners. They believed that the position of the furniture or the position of a building could bring luck. But it was until the 1100s that they developed the magnetic compass for navigations. Okay, then we have the other section. The other section talks about Shanghai's rapid growth. Shanghai's location has always attracted settlers because it's a port. So, and it has always been, because it's a port city, it has been a trade center. So it has always been very attractive. Today, it is China's largest city with 20 million people, and it's the center for finance and business. Now, which factors fueled growth of the city? Well, in the 1990s, there were several economic reforms that led to new investments in the city. The economy of China was controlled by the central government, but around that year, the government allowed an area in Shanghai that was called Pudong to become a special economic zone. It was called the Marquette Economy. This market economy had no control of the government, so it attracted multinational corporations. Now, what are multinational corporations? Multinational corporations are corporations that have several branches and offices in different countries around the world. These helped to bring economic globalization to China. That means globalization because it was an economy across national borders. But this economic growth, okay, of course, created a building and population boom. In the 2000s, they built thousands of skyscrapers. Here we can see the Shanghai World Financial Center. It's very popular. And so, because economy grew and building grew, and all these different companies established in Shanghai, population grew as well. So in the 1990s, only 4 million people from rural areas went to the city seeking for jobs. They needed better job opportunities, and that's what Shanghai offered. So it caused an explosion of growth, an explosion in the population. This exploding growth population caused higher pollution. So they started thinking what we can do, and they started working, trying to improve the conditions and try to help in the environment. So they relocated many people in the surrounded areas, in the suburbs. Buses and taxis also used cleaner fuel, and they moved factories out of the city center. That way they could help change the situation and improve their their life and the conditions and also the environment. All right, then we have the other section, 1.4, talks about Japanese anime. Anime is a style, and I think you know more than I do about anime, because many of you are really fans of this kind of animation or cartoons. Okay, and it was developed in Japan. It is closely related to manga. Manga are Japanese comic books. In the beginnings, in the 1900s, they started using some style and techniques that were developed in the 1960s. They started in those years, but it was not as popular. Osamu Tezuka adapted some of these techniques, some of the techniques that were used by Walt Disney. Bambi inspired Tezuka to draw characters with larger eyes, and he continued, and it became like a characteristic of anime. Ancient Japanese myths influenced many of the cartoons, like Shinto and Buddhism. This thing about the spirits in nature. There are many stories that are related to these beliefs. So it started to become popular, and in the 1980s, it started its popularity more or less with the Western audiences. Okay, the people in this other side of the world, in America, okay, and so on. Why it became so popular? Because they talk about a broad range of subjects. So it appeals to all ages and genders. And I am from the 80s, and these anime cartoons started to become very popular in those days. And I remember, and I was fan of Mazinger, and I was fan of Candy. Candy was my favorite, by the way. And then Mazinger Z, and with Aphrodite and all its characters. So our generation started enjoying these type of cartoons. Then section 1, lesson 1.5, bullet trains. Okay, this is the last lesson. Bullet trains, very popular, and they a great means of transportation. In 1964, they invented the high-speed rail. These trains traveled more than 125 miles per hour. They are really, really fast, and that's why they are called bullet trains. They have an aerodynamic design like airplanes, so it has a rounded tip at the front of the train is rounded. That's aerodynamic. So that they have little resistance from the wind. That's why they can go very, very fast. Now, high-speed rails started to spread all over East Asia. First, they linked Tokyo with Osaka. And people could travel in 4 hours instead of 6. Okay, which was 2 hours less. It's very fast. Today connects Tokyo with all cities in main island of Honshu. In the 2000s, bullet trains ran throughout much of East Asia, so not only in China but also in other Japan, and they connected different countries, different cities. Then now, like closer to our times, and they are still working on that. They invented the magnetic levitation train, or maglev, as they call it, shorter. It's a train that rides on a cushion of air over tracks laid with many powerful magnets. What are the benefits of these bullet trains? Well, first, time passengers save. Two, economic boost to rural locations. Before, it was very difficult to get to rural areas. So now those rural areas were more accessible, and also the people from the rural areas could get to the city easily. Less pollution, and because of the technology that these trains use. And also, well, maglev, the magnetic levitation train, is pollution free. It doesn't pollute, which is great, I think.
All right, and that's all about East Asia and its culture. Hope you understood. If you have any questions, just ask me. And I hope that this video can be helpful, very useful, and helpful for your study for further evaluations.